Yo, what up, HTG crew? Hope you guys are enjoying the Olympics. We're obviously coming off the heels of the men's Olympics golf tournament. We're actually right in the midst here of the women's version of the event. Hopefully, one of these U.S. ladies can get it done and follow in the footsteps of our boy, Xander Schauffele, bringing it home for the red, white, and blue in the men's Olympic golf tournament. An awesome win for Xander, especially given the storylines with his dad. I will get into that when we get into the Olympics recap. But first, after a week off for the Olympics, heading into a WGC event, we're not too far off the heels of the Open Championship. We're not too far away here from the FedEx Cup playoffs. I mean, the talent at the top of the official world golf rankings and the talent on the PGA Tour right now and the European Tour, just the worldwide talent in the game of golf right now, has me so excited for where the game can go and continue to grow to, and particularly the PGA Tour. They have every opportunity in the world right now to continue to gain young fans and gain traction as a premier sports league moving forward. So, I mean, the Olympics just reinforced at a worldwide level just how impressive some of the golf we've seen is. Let's go ahead and get into what I'm smoking. I'm smoking Gorilla Glue number 4 today. The grower is Cali Gas Pack. I've smoked them before. You guys, I'm sure, recall that grower if you've been a long-time listener of HTG Pod. It is a sativa. It's testing at 18.96% THC. Yeah, I rolled it a bit smaller today just because I expect this video is going to be significantly shorter. We only have a field of 66 players this week at the WGC, so fewer plays to talk about, as you might imagine. All right. Got to get a little celebration buzz going first. Shout out Xander Schauffele again, bringing home the gold medal for the red, white, and blue of the United States in the men's 2021 Olympic golf tournament there in Tokyo, Japan. Xander finished at 18 under to win that gold medal. And I mentioned it was a particularly special and emotional win for Xander. That being, if you haven't heard the story already, his father, Stefan Schauffele, was a decathlete and actually was slated to be an Olympic decathlete until a car accident actually caused him to lose vision in one of his eyes. He was not able to perform in that Olympics that he had trained so hard for as a decathlete. It was somewhat of a sort of like a motivation, a recurring theme or storyline, even like throughout Xander's childhood, his father's dedication to become an Olympic decathlete and sort of having that stolen away. And Stefan, of course, taking all of that energy and putting it into his son Xander and his athletic ventures, which of course were not in the decathlon, but in the game of golf. So for Xander to be able to share that gold medal in that moment with his dad, Stefan, I mean, just an awesome thing to see, especially for a guy like Xander who has had some trouble finishing out golf tournaments and getting the win. Really, I mean, since the Tour Championship a couple years ago back at East Lake, it's been a struggle for Xander finishing down the stretch. So nice to see Xander get the job done for family and for country. The storyline of Sunday, though, honestly, I mean, even though Xander won the gold, so he is the main storyline, of course. But for me personally, after I'm done ashing all over myself, Rory Sabatini in that final round 61 on I guess Saturday here in the States, on the West Coast at least. But yeah, Sunday morning there in Japan. My God, Rory Sabatini, that's savage stuff right there. Playing for his second wife's native nation of Slovakia. Of course, Rory Sabatini, a native South African. But, I mean, hey, man, great decision to go ahead and get that Slovakian citizenship. That's the word I was looking for. Get that Slovakian citizenship, go ahead and represent the country of Slovakia, and come home with a silver medal. Hopefully, as Rory Sabatini mentioned, it increases participation in youth golf in Slovakia and just more interest, really in the game of golf in general over there in Slovakia. So great job by Rory. Certainly not the Rory we would have expected to see on the medal stand. But Rory McIlroy in his own right found himself as one of the members of a 7-4-1 playoff, for the bronze medal. I mean, one of the coolest situations or setups you could see. Only way it'd be cooler is if it were for the gold, like if there were multiple medals at stake, right? But to have 7 players vying for one spot is incredibly rare. Even, and I mean, like that doesn't even really happen like Monday qualifying or anything like that. So it was actually CT Pan who gets the job done, winning the bronze. Had to wade his way through names like McIlroy, Morikawa, who he was going head-to-head with before he made a birdie on his final playoff hole to eliminate Morikawa. Paul Casey was in that playoff. I mean, it was an absolutely stacked playoff, and for CT Pan to have even made his way into the playoff was nothing really short of miraculous. Pan opened the week with a 3 over 74. He himself, I mean, after the tournament was over in the post tournament presser with his fellow medalists, Colin Morikawa and Rory Sabatini, CT Pan even said he was talking to his buddies after the first round and was just joking about sort of like how bad he was and knew he had no chance to medal. And then he goes 66, 66, 63 to end his week and survives the 7-for-1 playoff. A well-deserved and well-earned bronze medal for one Mr. CT Pan. Another sign of just how strong the talent pool is worldwide in the game of golf right now. We get Mr. Chinese Taipei himself to medal in this strong field. So an awesome event, honestly. It's cool to see like second and third place mean something in a golf tournament because typically, obviously, we only care about the winner. But with medals at stake, a silver and bronze at stake, it's just cool to see the dynamic differ a bit at the Olympic golf tournament. The golf course looked great. Kasumi Gaseki. Really interesting lies on a lot of the golf course. You get that grass that sort of, the ball can either fall straight to the bottom or literally it will sit up like it's on a tee. So a lot of tight lies around the greens, a lot of luck involved in the rough. If you found yourself there, a decent enough test for these guys, 18 under being the winning score. That's fine, right? I mean, that's not too different from the winning score we saw back at the Open Championship, the final major of the year, even though typically the Open would have, more difficult weather conditions to help protect the golf course. Still, all in all, I think a fair enough test. Maybe like to see it a little more difficult if you can, but of course, Japan, Tokyo, that entire city and country just doing everything they can to really pull off this Olympics with as few hitches as possible. So all in all, a great tournament. And again, shout out Xander Schauffele bringing it home for the red, white, and blue. And with that, let's move into a WGC event. Man, we haven't had a WGC event in a while. It's kind of nice. The Olympics kind of preps the mindset for the WGCs, the smaller field, in that 60, I believe the Olympics was 60-man field. We have a 66-man field this week, so the dynamics on DraftKings for DraftKings tournaments will be similar. And because there are fewer players to choose from, of course you're going to see higher ownerships associated with the player pool in general, right? Your player pool is going to be more owned because there are fewer options. That's just how it works. 2021 WGC FedEx St. Jude. We're playing at TPC Southwind. It's in Memphis, Tennessee. Par 70, 7,238 yards. We're on Bermuda greens. This was previously the St. Jude Classic. Also was played at TPC Southwind, but it became a WGC, taking over for the Bridgestone in my home state of Ohio. Sad to see it leave Akron, Ohio at Firestone Country Club. It now hosts a Champions Tour event. It might be a Champions Tour major. I can't remember which event replaced that WGC Bridgestone back at Firestone. But yeah, this is now the WGC rotational that previously was the Bridgestone. So upgrading, the St. Jude Classic a couple years ago to a WGC event. I mean, great for these guys, but feeling bad for my home state of Ohio and particularly Northeast Ohio for losing that event. It was always a fun time. Playing at a par 70 Means we only have two par fives, right? At 7,238 yards. It's not a short golf course, par adjusted, but nothing these guys can't handle, particularly with the weather forecast we have this week. It's going to be hot and humid all week, weather in the low 90s, humidity in the 50 to 60% range. So the golf course should play shorter because the ball is going to be able to carry further through this air. I've already mentioned 66 player field. There will be no cut this week. So assuming your golfers do not withdraw or are not DQ'd, you're going to get 4 rounds from each of them. And ownership projections are like really jumped out to me this week on DraftKings. It's going to be we're going to take a different approach this week than really any other week we've taken thus far in the HTG pod. And it's just because for a 66-man field, there are a lot of really talented players at shockingly low ownership. It sort of makes the pivots much more clear when you only have a 66 person field, because there aren't a ton of pivots you can move to anyway. There are only so many players priced in each pricing range because we only have 66 players in the field. So, ownership is just super concentrated this week. We're coming off the Olympics, and for one, I will be fading every player that played in Japan this past week. I just think with the travel, the emotional sort of stress and strain the Olympics, I'd imagine, would take on a player. I'm just going to go ahead and side with the guys who did not play in Japan last week. So I'm not going to be playing anyone that played in the Olympics. So that's already going to be really easy differentiator to determine who we're going to look at. And I'm also just playing players based on talent and projected ownership. These guys that are super talented, top players in the world, and getting lower ownership, particularly for a 66 person field, giving us great leverage opportunities. I'm going to lean on that this week, and I'm going to use the statistical model to supplement that decision-making process rather than, normally, typically here at the HTG pod, we lead with our statistical model to sort of identify which players we want to take a look at, and then move forward from there. So we're actually going to kind of work the process in a bit of a reverse fashion. And we're just going to look at, projected ownership, those players that are low projected own, that have, an immense amount of talent, right? That are high in the official world golf rankings, have proven to have high upside, but maybe just aren't in as good a form as the players in this field that are drawing a ton of ownership. I feel like there's a great week to get different. So if you're someone that is not comfortable with getting different with your lineups, playing lineups with low aggregate projected ownership. So that means all 6 golfers, if you take their projected ownership and add them up, I will be playing very low aggregate projected ownership lineups. And this will literally be a week where I'll win a GPP by 25 points if I win it, or I'm going to come in dead last. And I'm okay with that. You have to understand if you are, and if you are, then come on a ride with me this week, because ownership is crazy. So let me go ahead and spark back up and we can get into this. My winner actually sits in the top shelf. There are no withdrawals this week. And actually my winner is my only top shelf play this week. So drop in the YouTube comments who you think my winner is here in the top shelf for the WGC FedEx St. Jude, and let me know who you think's going to win the event. Statistical model really quickly before we jump into it. Again, the model this week just really supplementing the decision-making process. Strokes gained approach, strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained on par 4s. Again, you will have 12 par 4s, 4 par 3s, and 2 par 5s. So premium on par 4 scoring for sure. Strokes gained putting. Again, I've been looking at this all year, and I think it has helped us identify some players that are just running hot with the putter. Hank Lebioda certainly comes to mind, a guy who we really hopped on early before the ownership sort of followed him due to us including strokes gained putting in this model all year. And we actually have another player this week who we will be on as well due to how hot that putter has been running. And lastly, we included strokes gained on par 3s in the statistical model. Again, just a supplement to our decision-making process. We're basically just chasing low ownership and talented players. And with that, let's get into the top shelf plays. Top shelf plays are $10,000 or more in DraftKings pricing. And the first and only top shelf play, and he is my winner this week, I'm going to ride with Dustin Johnson. $10,200 price tag, 14.8% projected ownership. Of the players here in the top shelf, only Xander Schauffele, I guess Rory McIlroy right at $10,000. Those two players projected for lower ownership, but as I mentioned, I am not playing anyone that played in Tokyo in the Olympics last week. So that crosses off the names of McIlroy and Schauffele and left me with Dustin Johnson, the next lowest owned player in this range at 14.7%. All the ownership being drawn by Brooks and Jordan Spieth at 24.6 and 20.3% projected ownership respectively. And to be fair, they look great. Brooks actually rated out best for me. But if I can get Dustin Johnson at almost one half the ownership, I will go with that every time. I have to imagine DJ seeing what, these guys, I should say nipping on his heels, but he's actually been passed by Rahm in official world golf ranking. But guys like Rahm, Xander, Morikawa, these guys are making moves on DJ. And for my money, I think if everything's going right for every player in the world, there's nobody better than DJ. So if I can get him at an ownership discount, a little bit of a buy low spot, I think he mentally has to be in a spot where he needs to put the pressure back on these guys because, in my opinion, he is the top dog in the world when everything's clicking. It hasn't been as good off the tee and with the ball striking for DJ as you might expect or hope for coming into this event. But again, I'm riding with ownership. And DJ not drawing enough ownership, in my opinion, given his talent level, particularly in a 66-man field where he has a ton of win equity. So Dustin Johnson, my winner of the event, the only top shelf play at $10,200. Course history-wise for DJ real quick, came T12 last year, T20 in 2019, T3 in 2018, T17 in 2017, and won the event in 2016 back when it was the St. Jude Classic before it became a WGC event. So the man likes TPC Southwind. He can play it well. He's the second-ranked golfer in the world. What else do I need to say? Dustin Johnson, 14.8% projected ownership, $10,200 is your top shelf play. And I really do like dipping down here into the mid-shelf, the top range of the mid-shelf. The highest owned projected play that I will go to here in the mid-shelf, and mid-shelf plays are $7,500 or more in DraftKings pricing. It's going to be Louis Oosthuizen. $9,600 price tag, 19.1% projected ownership, didn't play in Japan, and has been playing these premier events spectacularly. I don't have to tell you that. His major championship finishes here recently. Came third at the Open Championship, second at the U.S. Open, and second at the PGA Championship. And he followed up that third place finish at the Open Championship with a second place finish at the 3M. I didn't even realize that he charged to a second place finish at the 3M. So Louis been absolutely unconscious. We get him sub 20% in the 66-man field. So while 19.1% might sound like a ton, for a guy as cheap and as on fire as Louis Oosthuizen has been, I am absolutely fine firing him up at that projected ownership. The pivot I considered was Victor Hovland, $9,700 price tag, 14.3% projected ownership. Dude's been hitting the ball amazingly well. If you really want to go contrarian, and it sort of fits the theme for this week for me, the issue is I think something actually might be wrong with the game right now. Justin Thomas at $9,900, coming in at only 11.7% projected ownership. He is your defending champion, shot 13 under last year in the event, defending his title. He just looked so off at the Olympics and has seemingly been just off lately. And in a pretty major way. Let's go over JT here recently. So yeah, he lost on approach at the U.S. Open, came 40th at the Open Championship, and then at the Olympics, he didn't make a birdie in his first 20-some-odd holes. Didn't really have a great performance there either. Look, he's Justin Thomas, and he's the lowest projected owned player in this sort of range here, in the top of the $9,000 range, so you can absolutely go to him. But I think for just about, let's see... Yeah, he's almost double. Louis is almost double the projected ownership as JT. That's actually kind of a toss-up for me between Louis and JT, given the ownership. In a vacuum, I like Louis, but given the ownership, you can go to Louis or JT. Louis gives you a $300 cost savings. So if you have the salary to go up to JT at $9,900, I would do it. If you need to save the $300, drop down to Louis at $9,600, 19.1% projected ownership. $9,500, too small of a price tag and crazy low ownership, 4.6% projected ownership on Bryson DeChambeau. Yeah, give me all the Bryson at this $9,500 price tag, 4.6% projected ownership. Don't care that the tournament history here is not great. Don't care maybe that the form hasn't been the best. But he was pretty good over the weekend at the Open Championship. This guy's second in this field off the tee. He's an absolute stud. The ownership's not high enough. The price isn't high enough. So I'll play him. Is it a perfect course fit? No, but I'm not concerned. This is a place Bryson can certainly game plan for, and his prowess off the tee should be a huge asset here. So I really like Bryson. I'll be surprised if he does come in this low owned at 4.6%. But even if we get him, if we get him in single digit projected ownership at a $9,500 price tag, I have no problem starting my lineups with Bryson at $9,500, and then looking elsewhere toward a more balanced build. Patrick Cantlay at $9,300, 13.2% projected ownership. Cantlay, just a great ball striker, a guy who's actually burned me playing him a bit here lately, but hopefully he gets back on the right track, as he seemingly has been here since I haven't been playing him. But coming in third overall in the custom model, 11th with the putter, 11th in the par 4 range, 14th on approach, 9th off the tee, 19th in the par 3 range. I like the 13.2% projected ownership. Nothing crazy owned. He's actually one of the a nice lower owned pivot to Daniel Berger at a $9,200 price tag, who's drawing 21.3% projected ownership. Scotty Scheffler, another guy drawing a lot of ownership at 18.7%. But I'll look to Cantlay. I would have also looked to Hideki, but again, not playing anyone that is coming off of that Olympics. But Hideki only at 5.5% projected ownership and played great at the Olympics this past week. But it'll be Cantlay for me, since Cantlay was not in Tokyo last week. 13.1% projected ownership. Again, a great ball striker. I believe the tournament history here is pretty solid too. T35 last year, T12 in 2019, and tied for 6th in 2018. So yeah, pretty solid tournament history for Cantlay here as well. A guy you might want to fire up, if you do fire up Justin Thomas, you might just want to start your lineups Justin Thomas and then slide in Tony Finau. Maybe you can fit in Bryson DeChambeau as well in that lineup. Tony Finau, $8,900 price tag, 5.2% projected ownership. A guy, we're going to get 4 rounds from him. There is no cut here, so a guy who usually can outscore his DraftKings pricing by making lots of birdies and probably lots of bogeys with it as well. But at $8,900, he has so much upside here. And Finau only at 5.2% projected ownership. Between like Bryson, Finau, JT, who I'm actually going to add to the player pool here. I'll add him to the list before the article goes up. These guys are just too talented to not pivot to, in my opinion, when their counterparts, who are probably of, equal talent level, are going like twice as owned just because of the form. So I think it's a really, really good week to pivot and pivot hard to some of these guys that are being underlooked. And I believe that is Tony Finau, $8,900 price tag, 5.2% projected ownership. And he is not popping in the model at all. Course history is not phenomenal. T65 last year, T27 in 2019, and T10 in 2018 is nice to see, a little bit of upside there. But Tony has not been hitting the ball great. Typically a good ball striker, as we know. He lost strokes on approach in his last 3. Did play well at the Open Championship and was riding a hot putter at the 3M Open. So if he can continue riding hot with that putter and we see the ball striking regress to his norm, just the ownership is really why you're playing Tony Finau here. He's a talented player, a top 20 player in the world. And he's going to be 5% projected owned in a field of 66 players at a very affordable price tag of $8,900. So that's why you're playing Tony Finau this week. Will Zalatoris, $7,900, 8.6% projected ownership. The love on Mr. Zalatoris has cooled as his game cooled off a bit there, heading through the end of June and into July. Zalatoris came 59th at Charles Schwab, missed the cut at the U.S. Open, then came 77th at the Rocket Mortgage last we saw him. Lost massively on approach in 2 of those performances at the Charles Schwab and the Rocket Mortgage. But it's been a month since we've seen Zalatoris, and we know what we can typically expect from this guy on approach, and that is nothing but greatness. For a while there was rivaling Colin Morikawa as the best player on approach on the PGA Tour for the season, so I have no qualms with going to Zalatoris at a reduced ownership, while it seems like the the shine's worn off him. Maybe the luster isn't on him as much. People were really flocking to him, and he was getting a lot of ownership in a lot of events when he was on that strong run, really, from Shriners all the way through the PGA Championship. This guy was really, really good. It's been a couple tough performances, but again, we're going to buy low this week on really talented players, and I think Will Zalatoris fits that script. And the final guy, our guy. He's an R guy this year for sure. Brian Harman, $7,500 price tag, 13.3% projected ownership, was a bit higher than I was expecting to see, given that, he's not statting out great. But this dude's just been putting the lights out. All we need him to do is hit fairways, right? Like off the tee is where Harman's. It's really going to determine whether or not Harman has success this week. We need him to have a strong week off the tee, and if he does, he will pay off this price tag at $7,500. Not good course history. Last played this event in 2018, came 62nd, and came tied for 50th in 2017. In those two performances, lost 10.39 strokes total. I will say this is probably the hottest stretch of golf Brian Harman's played in his career, arguably, extended stretch of golf. So the form coming into this event, likely much different than it was coming into 2018, 2017. Brian Harman, a much, much improved player from that time. And that closes it out for the mid-shelf plays. So I got one top shelf play for you guys. I shot out 6 mid-shelf plays. It'll actually be 7 mid-shelf plays once I add Justin Thomas there at the top of the mid-shelf at $9,900, which I'll go ahead and slap a star next to him now on fantasynational.com. Just so I make sure to add him back in. And then we can get into the best part of the show. That's the SCHWAG bag. SCHWAG bag plays are sub $7,500. So there are guys that were looking for some bargain basement pricing. And it being a WGC event, we do have some talented players down here in the SCHWAG bag. WGCs and major championships, you do get, as you guys well know, some talented players down here in the SCHWAG bag. So some serious guys to consider. And again, we're looking at that projected ownership. We have a couple guys here that are up here in the mid-teens, but other than that, I'm giving you guys all single-digit plays that I think just have the talent to present the upside that we need to win some tournaments this week. All right, the first SCHWAG bag play, Mr. Tyrrell Hatton. Tyrrell Hatton, $7,400 price tag, 15.8% projected ownership. He's one of these players that I mentioned are in the mid-teens in projected ownership. Hatton, obviously a phenomenal iron player. Plays par 4s really well. Coming in 8th overall in the custom model. Really the thing holding him back is the putter, where he's 60th in this field of 66 over the last 12 measured rounds. So if Hatton brings the putter with him, he is going to perform. 15.8% projected ownership. I'm not in love with it. I'd probably pivot to some of these guys down here a little bit lower in the SCHWAG bag with lower ownership. But, if you're a Hatton guy, then he's looking like a strong play. And 15.8% is not enough to not play him, to be fair. I would just maybe take an ownership discount on some of these guys, especially if your lineup already has some of the somewhat chalkier plays that we've mentioned thus far, and like a Louis Oosthuizen and a DJ, something like that. And if you are playing Hatton, maybe don't pair him with this next guy. That's Sergio Garcia at $7,300, 15.6% projected ownership, so a similar ownership projection to Hatton. Another guy who obviously a phenomenal player on approach, but just can't putt. 61st in this field in strokes gained putting. One spot worse than Hatton over his last 12 measured rounds. So Hatton and Garcia both needing to bring the putters with them. I just said don't play them together, but sounds like they probably correlate pretty well. So even at their projected ownerships, I will backtrack on that one. I'll walk that one back. Go ahead and play them together, because it seems like if we can get a week where, putting is neutralized a bit, then Hatton and Garcia both stand to benefit in a similar way. So correlating them might actually be nice in lineups. But you want to make sure that you start to get a bit different outside of that. Again, always a good way to get different. Just leave $100 or $200 on the table. That's a really good way to differentiate yourself. Okay, so these are some really interesting names here below Sergio Garcia. all projected for single-digit ownership. The first one being Adam Scott, $7,200 price tag, 6% projected ownership. Let's see here. Scott, hated in the model, coming in 55th. But I did mention that strokes gained putting. When I was mentioning the statistical model, I mentioned, Hank Lebioda being a guy that strokes gained putting pointed us to. I mentioned that there was someone this week, and this is the guy. It's Adam Scott. He's actually first in this field over the last 12 measured rounds in putting. So I'm going to go ahead and ride the hot putter. Really, it's just been the off-the-tee game that's been a big struggle for Scott lately. And, over the course of his career, he is a positive off-the-green player. He gains strokes off the tee, typically. So I'm going to say, if he can continue the hot putting and just even have a neutral week off the tee, you get a lot of upside at a 6% projected ownership and a very, very, very cost-friendly $7,200 price tag with Adam Scott. The tournament history, Scott came T40 in 2019, T57 in 2018, T13 in 2017, and T10 in 2016. Yeah, I'll fire up some Adam Scott this week. Okay, guys, so a calendar flipped to August, and so I really start taking a hard look at one man once we flip the calendar to August, and I'm going to be playing him this week. It's Billy Horschel. Billy Ho, $7,100 price tag, 9.6% projected ownership. And I swear, this dude just turns up once the calendar flips to August. Once we get into right into pre-FedEx Cup season and then into FedEx Cup season, Billy Horschel just goes to another level. Dude goes unconscious. Obviously, your 2014 FedEx Cup champion. This is Billy Ho season. It is what it is. And you know what? He's been playing decent enough golf for me to think that the form can continue to trend in the right direction. He's got the off the tee game turned around. He's actually 17th in this field off the tee over the last 12 measured rounds. And now the irons have started to slip. So if he can get the irons to catch up a bit, the putter has always presented tons of upside. Hasn't been on fire lately. Only 37th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds. But again, it's Billy Ho season. Let's get the irons back intact, and I think the rest will take care of itself. Again, the driver's already back, and the putter neutral in this field and presents plenty of upside when Billy Ho gets hot on the greens. I don't have to tell you guys that. So Billy Horschel, I really like him. 9.6% projected ownership, $7,100 price tag. Another one of, I guess, my guys, sort of like Brian Harmon, a guy who I usually play. Unfortunately, we weren't on him when he fucking won. Came through for his win. But Cameron Davis, $6,900 price tag, 7.5% projected ownership, 28th in the custom model, 18th in putting, 17th on the par fours, 29th on approach, 50th off the tee is the struggle, 23rd on par threes. He's got plenty of distance off the tee, so he's just going to need to find enough fairways this week. And for sub 7K, I'm willing to take a gamble that he can. So 7.5% projected ownership, a very talented player. $6,900 price tag is going to allow you to do so much in grabbing some of these players near the top of the mid shelf, like the Louis, the Brysons, the JTs when I get them added, even Cantlay at $9,300. You can stuff like three of those guys in if you can look down to like a guy like Cameron Davis here at sub $7,000 for the salary savings. So Cam Davis looking good. And the final swag bag play, fresh off a victory, Mr. Cameron Champ. $6,700 price tag, 5.7% projected ownership. I'll take a shot on Champ. This dude, actually similar to Adam Scott, another guy who is running wildly hot with the flat stick. At John Deere, where he came 11th, gained 2.7 strokes putting, and his win at 3M gained 8.5 strokes with the putter. He's gained on approach in both those events, gained off the tee in both those events, gained tee to green in both those events, as you would imagine. He is losing strokes around the green, but if he's losing strokes around the green, then he's, probably cooked anyway, and actually lost 0.4 strokes around the green at 3M and still was able to win. So, if you're having to scramble at this golf course, you're behind the 8 ball anyway. So I don't think strokes gained around the green should be something we're too concerned about. Maybe people are just concerned about playing Champ off the win, which usually would concern me, but at 5.7% projected ownership and a $6,700 price tag, Champ's playing well, putting it lights out, and has one of the biggest weapons on the PGA Tour in his driver. So, yeah, Champ rounds out the swag bag. And that does it for us this week for the WGC FedEx St. Jude. Make sure you guys, if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do that. Hit that notification bell so you know when the videos get posted. Also, so you know when the videos get posted, another way to know is to follow us on Instagram at Hit the Green Podcast. You already know what it is. You already know I love you guys. Let's go out here. Let's get this paper. I believe it's $250,000 to first in the $20 tournament on DraftKings. I want to see some screenshots, and I want some text messages from you guys this week. HTG crew, I love y'all. I'm out. Peace.